Right, let's get one thing straight. When you think of the most important vehicles ever made, your mind might wander to some Italian supercar or a German saloon that can do warp speed. But you'd be wrong. Utterly, catastrophically wrong. The most important vehicle ever bolted together isn't glamorous, it isn't particularly fast, and it certainly doesn't have leather seats. It is, in fact, this, the 1942 Willys Jeep. A humble, green, metal box on wheels that, and I'm not exaggerating, literally changed the course of human history. It was the Swiss Army knife of the Second World War, a mechanical bulldog that went everywhere and did everything. This isn't just a car, it's a legend forged in the crucible of global conflict. It's the vehicle that Eisenhower himself said was one of the 3 decisive weapons that won the war for the Allies. High praise, isn't it? Coming from a man who had access to rather a lot of tanks and bombers. So what made this little truck so special? How did a vehicle designed in a frantic rush become the symbol of Allied victory and American can-do spirit? Well, that's what we're here to find out. We're going to dive into the fascinating story of its birth, explore the frankly brilliant design features that made it a world beater, and look at the frankly bonkers ways it was used on the battlefield. From its powerful little engine to the strange reason it got its name, this is the story of how a small car made the biggest difference imaginable. So buckle up, because this is going to be brilliant. The story begins, as all good stories do, with a bit of a panic. It's 1940. The world is on fire, and the American military suddenly realizes its motor pool consists of, well, not much. They were using motorcycles, some with sidecars, which are brilliant for getting your trousers muddy and not much else. They needed a light, go-anywhere reconnaissance vehicle, and they needed it yesterday. So the U.S. Army sent out a desperate plea to 135 different car manufacturers, with a list of demands that was, to be frank, completely impossible. They wanted a 4-wheel drive vehicle, weighing no more than 1,300 pounds, with a wheelbase of 75 inches, that could carry 600 pounds. And most absurdly, they wanted a working prototype delivered in just 49 days. 49 days! It takes me longer than that to decide what to have for breakfast. Most companies looked at the requirements, had a good laugh, and threw the letter in the bin. It was automotive suicide. Only 2 companies were brave, or perhaps foolish enough to properly respond. The American Bantam Car Company and Willys Overland. Bantam, a tiny company on the brink of collapse, miraculously managed to cobble together a prototype, the Bantam reconnaissance car, and delivered it just in time. The Army loved it, but they were worried. Bantam was a minnow. Could they really build these things on the scale needed for a world war? The Army, in a move of magnificent, some might say dubious wisdom, decided to give the Bantam blueprints to its bigger, more robust competitors, Ford and Willys Overland, and told them, right, have a go at that, but make it better. And that's where Willys Overland, with its brilliant engineer Delmar Barney Roos, stepped in. They took Bantam's brilliant concept and gave it the heart it desperately needed. They fitted it with their GoDevil engine, which was heavier than the Army wanted, but it was powerful and ridiculously reliable. After a series of grueling tests against the Bantam and Ford prototypes, the Willys MA, or Model A, was declared the winner. It was a bit heavier than the Army's initial spec, but it was tough, it was capable, and it was the best of the bunch. The contract was won, and the legend was born. Now, you can't have a hero without a proper name. Willys Overland Model MB just doesn't have the right ring to it, does it? It sounds like a refrigerator. But Jeep? That sounds like it can get the job done. So where on earth did that name come from? Well, the truth is, nobody is 100% certain, which of course makes the story even better. There are 2 main theories. Both are equally plausible and brilliant. The first theory comes from comics. Yes, comics. Back in the 1930s, Thimble Theater starring Popeye. In this strip, there was a magical creature called Eugene the Jeep. It could walk through walls, it could teleport, it could solve any problem it encountered. It only ever said one word, Jeep, Jeep. Soldiers nicknamed the vehicle after Popeye's pet. The second theory is more military. In Army jargon, new untested vehicles were called GP, general purpose. GP, GP, Jeep, Jeep. The name could be a slurring of GP. Soldiers shorten, create slang. General purpose becomes Jeep. Personally, I like to believe it's a bit of both. A funny-sounding acronym meets a beloved cartoon character. Whether magical dog thing or military mumbling, the name stuck. It became more famous than the company that built it. It wasn't a Willys Overland anymore, it was simply a Jeep. So, the Army had its wonder car. But what precisely did they do with it? The simple answer is everything. The Jeep wasn't just a vehicle, it was a member of the squad. Its official job was as a light reconnaissance vehicle, to scout ahead of the main force, zipping over hills and through forests to see what the enemy was up to. Its small size and incredible off-road ability meant it could go where bigger trucks and tanks could only dream of, providing vital intelligence without starting a massive ruckus. But that was just the beginning. The Jeep quickly became the battlefield's taxi service. It could ferry officers to the front line, carry vital dispatches between command posts, and transport small squads of soldiers to where they were needed most. With the windscreen folded down and a machine gun mounted on a pintle, it became a fast, aggressive weapons platform, perfect for hit-and-run attacks or providing covering fire for advancing infantry. It was a cavalry horse for the modern age. The sheer grunt of the thing was also put to good use. You wouldn't think it, looking at its size, but a Jeep could tow all sorts of things. It was often used to haul 37mm anti-tank guns into position, moving them far quicker than a gun crew could by hand. This meant that infantry units weren't left helpless if a panzer decided to show up. They also towed supply trailers, water bowsers, and field kitchens, keeping the army fed, watered, and supplied. Its duties were endless and often unglamorous. Jeeps were used to lay communication wires, with massive spools of cable unreeling from the back as it drove along. They served as field ambulances, with stretchers precariously strapped across the hood and rear. They were even fitted with flanged wheels and used to pull train cars along railway lines. If there was a job to be done on the battlefield, no matter how strange or dangerous, the chances are a soldier would look at it, scratch his head, and say, "I bet we could do that with the Jeep." And he'd be right. So, what made the Jeep so capable of doing all these things? Well, it wasn't magic, and it certainly wasn't powered by wishes. Honestly, it all came down to a design that was brutally simple and at the same time deeply, deeply clever. The most important feature, the one that really made it a legend, was its four-wheel drive system. At a time when most cars only powered the rear wheels, sending power to the front axle was revolutionary. It was the difference between getting stuck in the mud and actually climbing out of it. Now, let's talk construction. The Jeep wasn't built for comfort, it was built to survive a war. The body was a simple steel tub, strong and easy to repair. There were no doors, so soldiers could bail out fast. The seats were simple canvas pads on metal frames. The windscreen could be folded down flat onto the hood. Folding the windscreen lowered the profile and stopped glass from glinting in the sun. Headlights could pivot backward to light the engine bay. Shovel mounted on the side. Axe mounted on the side. It had a simple 3-speed gearbox. A second, smaller lever engaged four-wheel drive and low range. Low range let the Jeep crawl up impossible slopes. The Willys MB weighed about 2,400 pounds. Very light for a military vehicle. A few soldiers could lift a stuck Jeep out. That low weight, four-wheel drive, and rugged construction let it go almost anywhere. Frozen mud, Eastern Front, scorching sands, North Africa, dense jungles, Pacific. Honestly, it was a masterpiece of utilitarian design. At the heart of every great vehicle is, well, a great engine. And the engine in the Willys Jeep was, without a doubt, one of the greats. It was called the L134, but everyone knew it by its much better nickname, the GoDevil. And what a name that is, right? It wasn't just marketing fluff. This little four-cylinder engine earned its demonic title through sheer dogged determination and a refusal to die no matter what you did to it. The GoDevil was a 2.2-liter inline-4 engine, and on paper its specs are, let's be honest, not very exciting. It produced about 60 horsepower and 105 pound-feet of torque. My lawnmower is more powerful than that, but horsepower figures are for pub bores and people who wear shiny shoes. What really mattered on the battlefield wasn't top speed, it was torque, low down, pulling power, and reliability. And the GoDevil had those in spades. This engine was an old design, but Willis engineer Barney Roos had really worked his magic on it. He tweaked and tuned it until it was as tough as a coffin nail. It had a simple L-head design, which meant the valves were in the engine block next to the cylinders, not in the head above them. This made it less efficient, sure, but crucially, it also made it shorter, simpler, and much, much easier to fix in a muddy field with just a basic set of tools. A 19-year-old farm boy who knew his way around a tractor could practically rebuild it blindfolded. That 60 horsepower was enough to get the Jeep up to about 65 miles per hour on a good road, but its real talent was revealed off-road. Combined with the low-range gearbox, that torque allowed the GoDevil to pull the Jeep up hills that would make a mountain goat nervous. It could run on terrible, low-octane fuel. It would start in the freezing cold and wouldn't overheat in the searing desert heat. Honestly, it was a masterpiece of utilitarian design. The standard-issue Jeep was a marvel of versatility. That was just the starting point. Its simple, robust design made it a platform for almost limitless modification. If the Army needed a specialized vehicle, they didn't ask, "What do we build?" They asked, "How can we adapt a Jeep?" It became a true master of disguise. One major transformation: the field ambulance. Medics used Jeeps to reach places conventional ambulances couldn't. They fitted brackets for up to 3 stretchers, one across the back, one on the hood, one alongside the driver. A terrifying, bouncing ride over shell craters, but far better than the alternative. These Jeep ambulances saved countless lives. Then came the arms race. The standard pintle-mounted machine gun was only the beginning. Troops started strapping on heavier weapons, 50 caliber heavy machine guns for firepower, a 37mm anti-tank gun mounted in the back, a tiny mobile tank destroyer. Experimental mounts included bazooka rocket launchers and recoilless rifles, real threats to armor.